Saturday, your Ohio State defeated the Akron Zips by a score of 52-6. Really no surprise there. The game kind of went like everybody expected it to. I know Will Howard and the offense kind of got off to a slow start, had some drops early. Jeremiah Smith had that the pass he probably would have took to the house if he would have caught it, but got the dropsies. But he got the jitters out. Ended up leading the team with 92 yards receiving and a couple touchdowns. That kid's a real deal. I mean, he could end up being as good, if not better, than Marvin Harrison, from what a lot of people are saying. And you could see the talent just from watching him against Akron. And I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Yeah, it was kind of a slow game with the running game. Travion Henderson had 8 carries, 65 yards. Judkins had 55 on 13 carries. Judkins had the score between the two. And Carnell Tate, another young guy that they're looking to step up this year, had a touchdown catch. And Emeka Ibuka had kind of a quiet game, 4 catches, 51 yards. I'll tell you what, though, I was pretty impressed with the Akron front four. They made it tough on the Buckeyes, at least early on. And, I know there's a few of those guys that made a preseason All-MAC. So, at least Akron should have a pretty decent defense this year. What's your takeaways from the game?
Yeah, kind of like you said, the offense for the Buckeyes got off to that slow start, but, give credit to Akron's defense, especially like you said, their front four. And, for those kids on Akron and this week with Central Michigan, a lot of them probably had aspirations of playing for, those Power 5 schools. And this was kind of their opportunity to get out there and see how they kind of stack up. And I think it was the television broadcast said, this is your chance, to put something on tape against the number 2 team in the country if you're an Akron Zip. And, a few of them did put up some decent games and, hopefully they can parlay that into a great season. And, personally, I know you and I being Kent State alums, we don't want to see them do too well, but, but yeah, until the Buckeyes, really probably until they head out west to Oregon, that's probably their first big test. Up until then, it's just kind of getting everything in order leading up to that point. As difficult as that is to say, you don't want to look ahead. It's, take each week at a time. But regardless of how many times a coach or player gives you that cliche of 1 week at a time, they're human. They're looking ahead. They know what's coming. So yeah, stay healthy. Jeremiah Smith, a great debut as a Buckeye, a true freshman to go out there and do that regardless of the opponent. It's great to see. It gives you a lot of hope going forward. I know people argue about, is this a defensive back factory or a wide receiver factory, and what Coach Hartline, Coach Day, and the Buckeyes have been able to do probably the last 5+ years of what they've been able to do at college, and then getting these guys into the pros. And a lot of them are team's number 1 receiver, number 2 receiver, and captains on their team. It's just great to see. And if you're a high school wide receiver being recruited for that, what more could you want than seeing true freshmen go out there week 1 and make some of these spectacular catches, score a couple touchdowns. And like you said, Emeka Ibuka, a guy that's been a part of this offense for quite a few years, probably going to be mid to late first round, if not slip into the second round. And he has a relatively quiet day, and that's because Jeremiah Smith has become such a big target for Will Howard already. And it's only been 1 week of the season, but a lot to see and a lot to hang your hat on if you're the Buckeyes. And yeah, just, this week, another MAC school, Central Michigan, under the lights.
It's Western Michigan, I believe.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah, there's too many Michigans in the MAC.
One of those Michigans that are in the MAC, and But yeah, the Broncos, not the Chippewas, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a night game, which is kind of weird for this early in the season and not being a prime opponent for the Buckeyes. But it's a chance for, I guess, more people to see them. And I know the players love playing under the lights because there's
Yeah.
just something special about that. And
Right.
yeah, I I expect to see more of the same. A 5 or more touchdown lead. Maybe get to see some of the second stringers. Get to see. I know they brought in Devin Brown at quarterback. And you know we want to see like Aaron Nolan and some of these other guys, but they're not going to do anything to jeopardize losing their red shirt. For some mop up time against a MAC opponent. So, but you know, the guys that are given the opportunity want to see them do what they did this week moving forward.
Yeah, and like we've talked about before, and the transfer portal is just it changed things so much. And
So
Ken
much.
Carmen even mentioned today it's pretty much like NFL free agency. I mean, you look at Ohio State's roster already, and then you add a top 10 quarterback in Will Howard, you had a top 5 quarterback or running back in Quinshon Junkins, and then you bring in arguably the top defensive back in the country in Caleb Downs to already pretty stacked roster. All the guys that came back decided to come back instead of going to the NFL, and yeah, they've got the team to do it this year. So there's going to be a lot of pressure to win the national title for sure.
And it's crazy how the transfer portal has changed the game, because it used to be, you sit there on signing day and you're watching, 24/7 or ESPN and checking, the top 100 and seeing how many top 100 guys you get. And now it's like, if you miss out on them, maybe wait a year or two and there's a good chance they end up with you anyways through
Right.
the transfer portal. And, and we see it, we cover Kent State and some of the smaller schools, and you see it there, but kind of in a reverse way. You see these guys come in and do well, and you're kind of like, don't do too well, don't get noticed, by one of these Power 5 schools that can swoop in with NIL deals and things like that, because you want to see them at the schools you went to or schools that you follow, aside from the Buckeyes or a bigger school like that. But yeah, it's definitely added an element to college football that wasn't there, 3, 4, 5 years ago, because at that point, guys could transfer given certain stipulations or whatever, but a lot of times they'd have to sit out a year or something. Now these guys are transferring and day one starting, Will Howard from Kansas State, you mentioned Caleb Downs from Alabama, the list goes on for other schools outside of Ohio State too, where these guys are transferring in and, they're starting right away. And yeah, it's definitely added a bit of intrigue, just to see how teams build through recruiting, but then also once the transfer portal opens, how they kind of reassess their roster, kind of like you said, an NFL team does each offseason.
Even the smaller schools like Akron,
Right.
both their quarterbacks, Ben Finley transferred from Cal, and Taj Bullock from Virginia Tech. So I mean, it's benefiting them as well. Getting a couple quarterbacks from bigger schools. And you mentioned we cover Kent State, and kind of breaking news. We're also going to be covering the Akron Zips this year, so we're adding that to our college coverage. Anybody that follows us know we're pretty heavy in high school sports coverage, and we're also starting to expand our college as well. So definitely looking forward to that this year.